Mark. How you doing?
Good, Brian. How are you?
Good, good. Gapology guys back together?
Yep. Are you going to the Super Bowl?
No, I'm not. I am wearing my red though, sort of a red shirt tonight. Little showdown. I got my red lamp still going, so we're crossing our fingers here for sure.
I mean, the average ticket price is only $4,000. I can't imagine that you're not going.
Right, yeah, and that's like way up in the nosebleed seats, probably by the roof.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
Congrats for being there again. I'll be rooting for you.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, no, it's exciting. But I'm also excited about tonight. So, for everybody, our topic tonight is the habit ladder. So, for those of you who haven't read the book, this is by far our number one uh, most loved tool in our book. This model has changed lives all over the world. And we're excited to give you guys sort of a brief overview of this. We do go into detail in the book and that kind of thing, but we're going to give you sort of an overview of, where we found it and what it's all about, though. So,
Well, yeah, no, we invented it, by the way, just for the record.
yeah,
We own it.
yeah, and we sort of discovered it really just
Yeah.
through, some of the interactions that we had with some of the people that we were working with. So,
It's
you want
affected so many organizations and so many different countries, and it's been amazing. So the habit ladder is crazy good. So.
Right. Yeah, and it applies all through business in many different areas. You won't even realize until you really start to apply this where it fits. It's not just the area that you might think. So, Mark,
It,
you can kick us off if you like.
well, let me just finish what you're saying, though. It fits everywhere, except when you go to apply it to your partner, significant other, spouse, whatever. That does not work.
Yeah, yeah,
We've
that's true.
we
Yeah,
both experienced that, so do not go there. But if
right.
you happen to manage a team or you happen to be a leader, oh my God, it will work like crazy. So in our Gapology research, we found that most training isn't effective. It doesn't get where you need to get to. Um, and leaders overestimate the training. They'll say, "Yeah, I sent the email. Everybody's got it. We're on board." Or I conducted the training on the Zoom call. Yeah, we're good. And they're wrong. They overestimated the training. So most training is insufficient and never achieves habit level. And we defined habit level as where you want to get to. It means that training becomes a skill, a competency, and that the team can really do it and they understand it, and it 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 changes everything. And often a training is a new process or a change to a process. It's a rollout, and the leaders are responsible. And our significant finding is that the leaders are generally the source of the gap here, and it is a knowledge gap. So they literally overestimate the training. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the key part there, overestimating the training. And we're certainly not saying that training isn't important. We definitely think it is, but traditional training, how it's traditionally taught today, is really only the first element of the habit ladder. So when Mark goes through this, you'll start to think, well, I do all these things, but a typical training class doesn't even matter if it's a 1 day or a 1 hour class or whatever it is. The traditional training that exists today is typically just the first step of the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're suggesting that training rarely achieves habit level, and habit level is what you're trying to achieve in a rollout, and therefore the leader leaves significant knowledge gaps in the team. So you're the issue. You said the team was trained. They didn't achieve habit level. So we in our Gapology research spent a lot of time with the A team. You may have heard us talk about that in Gapology, and these were the top 10% in performance. And wow, did they get to the habit level? And by observing them and watching them and documenting what they were doing, we figured it out. So the habit ladder is a 5-step ladder. Picture a staircase. I'm sure Brian will show you a diagram. Picture a 5-step staircase, and you've got to get to the top. Yet most training never leaves the first step. And and therein lies the issue. And you as a leader are the issue. You haven't figured that part out.
Yeah.
But once you grasp the habit ladder, you can accomplish things you would have never dreamed of. And
Yeah.
it is simple. And that, that's what I would tell you. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. The I think the big evidence is if you look at your team and you feel like the training wasn't sustained, so they're not putting into practice the things that you trained, or if you ever are tempted to solve some sort of issue with your company by going back to training and retraining, recertifying, any of those words, going back and doing it again, the odds are is that you never got off that first rung of the habit ladder.
Yeah, right, right. So, Brian, did you create that T-shirt for this? Telling ain't training.
Yeah, yep, we have that one.
Yeah, yeah. So telling ain't training is a huge mantra that you need to, lead and project. So because you've told the team something that has no connection to the fact that they're able to execute it. So telling ain't training. So we estimate that there's at best a 50% retention of training. So if you're rolling out a new process that is critical to the organization and you don't use a habit ladder and you only achieve 50%, it will fail.
Yeah.
And that's most common.
Yep.
So the habit ladder totally overcomes that and it becomes your best friend. It becomes a tool you use all the time. And it works, and it works for everything that you want the team to move towards, change towards, roll out, etc. It We'll give you other examples of it, but it's been crazy successful. It literally works everywhere. It works with students, it works with children, it works with sports, but then it works in every business capacity. So the habit ladder in organizations has become the foundation of how they create the training rollout.
Hmm.
Fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And training is one element of this, but as I mentioned earlier, you can apply it with any sort of new expectation that you're setting for your team members, some new project that they're doing, any of these kinds of things where somebody has to learn new skills, obtain a new knowledge, any of that. And Mark, so one of the things that I was looking at, I haven't even told you this. I was looking at, so I saw your note on the 50% retention. I've got that in my notes here. And so I started thinking about this, and I knew there was this diagram I had seen, and I went online and I was looking this up. It's called Edgar Dale's cone, and it's sort of a cone of learning. It's sort of a pyramid thing, and there is some conflicting, where some people don't believe in all this, but I thought it was interesting because it totally aligned with the 50% piece. So so people retain 5% of the information when it's just a lecture only, when it's just somebody just
5%.
5%, 10% if they read something,
Okay.
20% if there's some sort of audio visual element, 30% if there's a demonstration, and 50% if there are discussion groups, like breakout groups. And I thought that's about what happens in a typical training class. You have those pieces. So you get to about 50% with doing role plays and breakout groups and so forth. Then you get to 75% by practicing by doing, and then 90% by actually learning it well enough that you can teach other people. So you have to almost get to that level where you can teach other people to really be able to retain the information. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the habit ladder gets there.
Yeah.
So as a leader, so speaking to leaders out there, if you grasp this podcast and the habit ladder, and again, the root solution out of Gapology under training, this is a big deal. It's likely for you, it's a career changing scenario, and it works, and it works every time. And it's simple,
Mhm.
and it's unknown. We when we started rolling out Gapology, we had organizations coming to us to talk about the habit ladder. What are you talking about? Gapology? Oh, the habit ladder. Oh, the habit ladder.
Yeah.
That's what you. So the habit ladder became this huge hit, and we'll tell you more about that later. But it's something as a leader that you need to know and understand, and find some humility around, because often you are the gap, and if you are not using the habit ladder, you're the gap,
Yeah.
almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, and again, this A group, a group of performers that were, totally outperforming everyone else. When we documented what they were doing, it was pretty clear that without knowing each other, without having ever met, with living in different parts of the country, they actually were doing the habit ladder without even, really knowing it. So we captured it there, we documented it. So just picture a staircase, with 5 steps, and that's the habit ladder. And when you execute it, you can achieve things that others can't.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that this does, it also creates kind of a habit in leaders once they start applying it, because they start to see their business through the lens of the habit ladder. So they'll start to repeat that same process for everything, not just the big trainings or the big rollouts.
Yeah, absolutely. It works for smaller things, and you can ask yourself the question: do we need to be in our organization at a habit level in this process? If the answer is yes, you need to use the habit ladder. And the other deceptive thing that we found is that often your best performers won't necessarily get to habit first. They won't automatically get there. But when they get there, they're the best performers. So don't be deceived by who gets there first. Be be confident in the fact that when the team gets there, you totally execute and you rock. So first to the table isn't necessarily best.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, would you like to walk us through the teachings of this?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's walk through this.
Dive
So
in.
picture again a 5-step staircase. So the first step is communication. The new process. Here it is. Let me tell you about it. And it's the rollout of this new process. Well, unfortunately, most training, whether it's a new process or something that they need to learn to do their role or whatever, ends right there. And the leaders assume that it's known, and they assume that it will be executed. And that's a incorrect assumption. So most on this 5-step ladder, most training ends at step 1, communication. Here it is. I conducted the Zoom call.
Yeah.
What? Why are you thinking it's not executed? I did the Zoom call, remember? Or I sent the email. I know they all got it. What are you talking about? We covered it in the meeting, remember? We covered it. Remember that segment I talked about for a few minutes there? So leaders assume that through their communication on a 5 step ladder, step one gets to step five. Sorry, you're the gap. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely varying levels of success here, effectiveness, and largely, I think it's really dependent upon the facilitator, the trainer, their skills, how well they observe the responses and the interactions of the team that's in the room. If you have a trainer that is maybe a newer trainer or they're very, sort of inexperienced or ineffective there. Even if they check that box and say we did deliver the training, that training's not going to be solid. So that communication piece is critical to really look at not just are you communicating it, but how are you communicating it? What is that process? And spending some time developing that out, planning all that out to ensure that people not only hear it, but understand it.
That's a great point. So slow down in that communication process because we know it doesn't work. Give multimedia communication, go after it differently. But that's step one. And again, most leaders, we're not kidding, stop there. We're done. We got it. We rolled it out.
Yep.
And that's the big gap is that the habit ladder step one is considered to be step five and it's not. So
Right.
so step two, rarely executed. So leaders listen up. Step two is understanding that and verifying that the team got it. So depending on what you've done, you may have to test, you may have to have other means of verification, but you've got to know that the team understood step one, the training, the communication. And this is a rare event today. So understanding, verifying the understanding is a huge deal, and it begins to make the ladder come together. What do you have to add to that,
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, I think understanding is an interesting one. Certainly, there are different learning styles that people have, and you have to sort of create this blended approach when you're teaching to ensure that you're tapping into everyone's learning style so that they're able to understand and grasp it. So that's the first part. The second part is, how do you verify it? So you can certainly do testing. One very popular thing is to do some sort of role play, interactive skill practice type of exercise where you can observe the performance of the other person that would indicate whether they are understanding what's being said, communicated, delivered. So I think looking at all those different elements can really help. One thing I will say is that a lot of people think role playing is one of our later steps that we'll talk about, um, but it's really drilled into this understanding level.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done that's quite effective is after the communication of this new process that rolls out tomorrow, we simply, in a small group, go around the room and have them speak to it. And it's quite interesting because you do learn the level of understanding at that point.
Yeah.
And that has been incredibly effective. We verify, in essence,
Mhm.
that the group understood. So you have to tailor the verification process to the complexity of the of whatever you're training. And it is a misstep. It's an obvious step, but it is a misstep. And at least if you close the first two steps, effective communication, and then you verified that the team understood it, you are well ahead of most teams. Fair enough to say?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. The interesting thing that you're sharing there, when we talk about meeting execution, we always talk about random recaps. Going around the room and just doing a random
Random
recap.
recaps, if as a leader you're not doing that, It is an incredible tool to have. And every meeting you have, you should do random recaps where you simply turn it back to the group and have each person speak to what they learned. It
Mhm.
is amazingly insightful as to your level of communication and gap closure. So I'm sorry, Brian, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's really applying the habit ladder to your meetings.
Yeah,
It's one of the steps there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gapology says, this is about you,
Yeah.
not about the team. It's about you as a leader. If you learn to be incredibly effective, everything changes. So, verification of understanding is critical. Don't assume otherwise. People learn differently. It's just different. It, they they learn in different ways. They learn in different time frames. Your verification of that has to be critical. So now we've hurdled step one and step two. Step three, we're at the middle now, an incredibly rare event. And that is for the leader to ask the team for their agreement to execute this new process, literally in front of their peer group, ideally. Are you on board? Are you in? You know, and you literally go around the room. It's a very powerful thing. You could change step three from agreement to commitment if you wanted to. It's the same thing. So it's not done. So you're asking for their commitment, their agreement to execute this new process. And you literally, when you get them to commit in front of their peer group, it changes their behavior. So now we know that they know the process. We've verified their understanding of it, and now they've committed to it. They've agreed to do it. How powerful is that for you as a leader to have those three steps in place? What do you think, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah. I no, I love that. And when you said it's rare, it's extremely rare.
It's rare.
I've really only seen this done one time, kind of in the wild where I was a participant. Um, but it does create that connection to whatever you're teaching, whatever that activity is that you're asking for commitment around. One thing that you can do here too is ask the group how it aligns with the purpose, the expectations, the goals, the objectives. How does what we're teaching align with the things that are the most important in the organization? That sort of sets the stage for people agreeing to things.
That's wonderful.
If they
Yeah,
can
that's
emotionally
wonderful.
connect to it.
When you get the group, again, depending on the size of the group and the team that you manage, to get them to agree that this is part of our purpose, that this aligns with our purpose is powerful. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian.
Sure.
An incredibly powerful way to really close out step three. So now they know the process. You've verified they understand it. And now they've agreed and committed to do it, and they know it aligns with the purpose. So steps one, two, and three we're not at the top of the ladder yet. Those have accomplished more than the training you were doing prior to that, from what we're telling you. They've accomplished dramatically more than where you were before. Most leaders, again, are stopping at step one. I sent the email. Didn't you get it, Brian?
Right.
Did you not read it?
Yeah. Telling ain't training.
So, telling ain't training, and so this is already game changing. We'll explain in a minute what that looks like. But steps one, two, and three are incredibly powerful. But step four is off the charts. Can I talk about that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have found that people learn differently, and they learn at different time segments. And adults learn quite differently than very young people, et cetera. So it depends on who you're training. But Step 4 is to practice the new process, the new whatever it is, and get feedback on it. And practice and feedback and practice and feedback and practice and feedback. What we found here that's amazing is the greatest performers were often not the first ones to get there. But after they got there, they became the greatest performers. So you as a leader may underestimate or overestimate the team. You may think that the first one there is going to be the best. That is likely inaccurate. Often someone that gets there later could become the best at executing this new process. So again, you need everyone to have practice and feedback in whatever this process is. And again, this will vary by what you're doing and what organization you operate, etc. But practice and feedback are absolutely critical to ensure that we are going to achieve habit. Habit means that we do this routinely. We can do it in our sleep. It's what we do. We're great at it. You can't get there without practice and feedback, practice and feedback. If you don't give the feedback, you'll have members of the team doing it incorrectly and assuming it's correct and not getting feedback on it. So step 4, practice and feedback, absolutely critical. And they really start bringing it home right here. What do you think?
Yeah, the practice and feedback is the key to this entire thing, and it's the thing that's rarely enough money budgeted to this step as an organization. The money usually goes into this giant event, training event, rollout, whatever it is. A lot of money gets spent there, and I would highly caution to shift some of that money into how do you provide this practice and feedback. And the feedback element, I want to speak about that for a little bit. Ensure that you have a qualified coach, somebody that you've verified that they can execute at a high level. Oftentimes, we just stick them with somebody else on the team. Make sure that's somebody that's qualified. Validate those skills of the coach. And every single person needs a coach. Every single person needs somebody to provide this honest feedback to help them grow. You think about Michael Phelps, greatest swimmer of all time, right? He had a coach. It's like, what does he need to learn? He's already the greatest. He already has all these gold medals. Celine Dion, vocal coach. She has a vocal coach. Celine Dion, are you kidding me? It's like, the people who want to be the best, be world class, they have coaches.
Yeah, we've seen in a number of organizations where they have created a group of mentors who uh, they don't. There's no reporting structure between them and who they're coaching, but they're the best at a process, and they literally do the practice and feedback with other people in the organization that are new to the organization or that haven't mastered whatever that process is, and it's a game changer. So mentorship definitely can be used during the practice and feedback step 4, and it's been incredibly effective.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the organizations that we worked with, they hired us to help them create an ambassador, a Gapology ambassador program.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah. So now they have this whole group of qualified Gapology coaches that go out and provide Gapology training and feedback and so forth. So look at how you can roll something like that into your organization.
So the 5th step and the top of the ladder is habit. You've achieved habit. Um, we were looking at it and it was amazing because when we got to habit, we realized that the action gap from Gapology was closed. Action gap's closed every time. So then we started looking back and we suddenly realized that the habit ladder was simply gapology. It was closing the knowledge gap, the importance gap, and the action gap. And that the knowledge gap was closed by the communication and the verification of understanding. Makes sense? That the importance gap was closed by the commitment and agreement piece, and that the action gap was closed through the practice and feedback and
Yeah.
achieving the action.
Yeah.
So it was literally gapology, but it was the habit ladder. And no one, we researched everywhere, and no one had ever put together the habit ladder. And it was like, Brian, have we just discovered the greatest thing other than like the Bible? It's like,
The wheel.
wait a minute, the habit ladder is like unbelievable. Every organization could benefit dramatically from the habit ladder.
Mhm.
And there it was, 5 steps. Yeah, got to do them. Got to do them every time. Got to. It was like we were just, flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Sorry. What do you have to say?
Yeah. No, no, you're right on there. The interesting thing about the habit level, it really creates this energy, this momentum for things. Once you get people to that habit level, they start to apply it to other things. And one of the interesting things, the first three steps is sort of passive learning. It's kind of that old school, but it's passive. It's just you're sitting there listening to the communication. Okay, yeah, I understand it. Okay, I agree to it. It's sort of passive. But then you start to practice it and you get the feedback and it's interactive and that sort of becomes that active learning piece where you're not just kind of absorbing, but you're participating in your learning. And the whole habit level, I think the key there is just reinforcing it as a leader. Make sure you're reinforcing it. Make sure that you're getting in there, providing recognition, providing additional coaching if needed. To keep people at that level, you sort of have to keep reinforcing it over and over.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So one of the things we've done with organizations is we've helped them achieve habit level in things that were critical to their organization. And the energy, what Brian's describing, the energy level that came from the team when they got to habit level, off the charts. So when you as a leader are conducting training of significance, look for that. Because if you haven't seen the energy level from the team, you ain't got there.
Mhm.
You're the gap. You're not at habit level. Habit level creates an energy, what Brian is describing, that is like, oh my God, look at this.
Okay, so how can people start to lay this all out? What are some things that they could do?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So one of the first things that we saw, which we sort of initiated, was the leader creating a poster of the 5 steps for a new initiative, something significant that the team needed to execute. It's a big deal. We've got a dozen people on the team. Where are they? They've got to be there. And they literally on the ladder put sticky dots with the names and where they were in relation to achieving habit. Sounds crazy, but incredibly powerful for the leader to know where the team is at. They didn't necessarily share it with the team at that moment, but they knew that this person was only at communication. They weren't yet at understanding. They knew that this other individual on the team was already in the practice and feedback stage. That was good. So when you roll out a new initiative, if you simply create a poster and put sticky dots on it, or you can do it electronically, it tells you where you're at and it helps you get everyone to the top step, level 5, habit level. And it sounds silly, but boy, does it work, because there are a group of people that will stay at the communication level at the bottom. They haven't totally grasped everything yet. They're not at understanding. They don't get to level 2 until they understand. Think about that. So they're at level 1. They still haven't got it. That doesn't mean they won't get there, but you've got to know that as a leader. So if you've got a major initiative you're rolling out, that's a great way to go after it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Brian? Sorry for taking so long.
Oh, no, you're fine. Yeah, I think the key with this exercise that he's describing is that this is not a measurement of your team as much as a measurement of your effectiveness in whatever you're trying to train. So if you have people that are living at that communication level, that's your responsibility as a leader to help them
You're
get.
the gap.
You're the gap.
You're the
So,
gap.
so
That's why
yeah,
I wear that Gap t-shirt so often, as you know.
yeah, yeah,
I know where the gap is.
right, right. Yeah, it's in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I would start there. And then the other piece I want to mention in this, Mark, is that the ladder can be applied in very situation or project specific ways. So you might have somebody on your team that's at the habit level in one element of their role, but really at not even at agreement in another element of their role. So that's why it's important to lay this out with the understanding of what are the most important priorities and expectations that I have for my team. And in those things, make sure that everyone's at that habit level. Start there. That's really the key, because otherwise you can start to kind of get lost in this. But really look at how you can apply it to create the most impact overall.
Yeah. Well said. So we have seen on this poster I'm describing, we have seen leaders who brought the team together and they had them place their own sticky dot on the 5 steps for this new initiative. That was quite powerful as well. So they had to explain why they were at level 2 or 3 or 1. So that can work for you as well. So think about that. So anything to add to that?
I want to ask about an adjacent situation. I think you had a conversation today that had an example of this as well, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
So I texted one of our Gapology partners who does some of our workshops. And I said, "Hey, we're doing the habit ladder tonight for our podcast. Do you have any feedback?" And he sent me a photo of his notes, and he was delayed in getting back to me because he was in the middle of a presentation with the national sales team for his organization, teaching them the habit ladder today. And I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So he viewed, and they're in the roofing industry. So he viewed in the roofing industry and all industries that the habit ladder was the most significant thing that the leaders needed to know.
yeah, yeah. And didn't he teach it in Africa as well?
So he he was part of a huge church that
Hmm.
taught pastors in Africa how to spread Christianity. And he would tell you that the habit ladder was the most significant thing other than the Bible that he taught. And it was how to spread Christianity and how to create habit level Christianity in Uganda and Kenya. And it was unbelievable.
Hmm.
We could do another podcast on that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Maybe we should. We should have him on the show actually.
I've taught habit ladder to coaches of tennis players and sports. It literally works everywhere. But you as a leader need to latch onto it as your number one go-to. No joke. So within Gapology, under the root solution training is the habit ladder. We should probably write a book around habit ladder, Brian. Um, don't you think?
Sure.
But yeah, we haven't done that yet. Habit ladder works. It works every time. It's about you. It changes everything. And once you master that habit ladder, success is at your fingertips. It's right there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, Mark. If anybody has questions on this stuff, make sure to reach out. If anyone wants a PDF of the habit ladder, email us directly at contact@gapology.org. It's contact@gapology.org. Email us and I'll send you one. So it'll be an interesting way to kind of see the engagement on this, actually. I just thought of this on the spot. I hope you're okay with that, Mark.
You should charge them like $1 million for
Yeah,
it.
right.
It will create results that they have not achieved.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, give it away. That's fine.
Yeah. All right,
You're
everybody.
generous.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of the night.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk to y'all soon.